Right now, you might be getting ready for church, or it's almost time to pray. Bowing your head, folding your hands, saying words to something you can't see. That instinct, that reflex to reach for something bigger than yourself, it feels ancient, timeless, like it's always just been there. It hasn't. 300,000 years ago, there was no God, no prayer, no church, nothing to bow to. There was just this. A group of cavemen walking single file down a narrow ridge, loose rock under their feet. One wrong step, one of them slips. Gone. Over the edge, down into water roaring below. His people don't move. They don't call out. There's nothing to call out to yet. A fall like that, into water like that, means one thing: death. They wait. Nothing. They wait longer. And then, minutes later, he claws his way out of the water, alive. And the moment his tribe realizes he's not dead is the moment something changes. Not in him, in them. Something just happened that they don't have a word for yet. They're about to invent one. The obvious answer is easy. He got lucky. A soft current, a deep pool, the right angle at the right second. That's it. That's what actually happened, biologically, physically, in the water. But luck isn't an idea a tribe can carry forward. Luck doesn't get repeated around a fire that night. Luck doesn't survive as a story for the next 10,000 years, because here's the problem. The human brain isn't built to accept "nothing happened" as an answer. It's built to ask, who did this? And that tiny difference between an event and an agent behind the event is where every god that has ever existed was born. To understand what happened on that riverbank, you have to go back further than the fall. You have to go back to why any of them were even alive to witness it. Imagine a different day. A branch snaps somewhere in the tall grass. No one sees anything. No shape, no movement, just a sound. Most of the time it's nothing. Wind, a falling stick, a bird. But every so often, it's not nothing. It's a leopard. The humans who assumed predator every single time, even when they were wrong 99 times out of 100, were the ones who lived long enough to have children. The humans who shrugged it off, who waited for proof before reacting, only had to be wrong once. Cognitive scientist Justin Barrett gave this reflex a name in the early 2000s, the Hyperactive Agency Detection Device, HADD for short. A mental trigger that assumes movement means mind. Unexplained means someone. It's cheap to be paranoid. It's fatal to be careless. So evolution kept the paranoid ones. That wiring never had an off switch. It didn't stay in the grass. It didn't stay with leopards. And on the riverbank, staring at a man who should be dead, that same wiring lit up with nowhere else to point itself. Something moved him through that water. Something chose to let him live. There's a name for what happened inside that tribe's minds in the next 10 seconds. And once you understand it, you'll never look at a thunderstorm, a lucky escape, or an unexplained coincidence the same way again. They weren't inventing a god on purpose. Something in their own skulls was doing it for them. He didn't build a religion on that riverbank, but he told the story that night. And every time it was retold, the water stopped being water. It became something that decided. The belief that natural things, rivers, wind, fire, animals, carry intention. Not a philosophy anyone sat down and designed, a survival reflex, misfiring on an event too big to leave unexplained. Global studies of hunter-gatherer societies point to animism as the oldest reconstructed religious trait in human culture. Older than belief in an afterlife, older than shamanism, older than ancestor worship, older than any god with a name or a face. The oldest. Not the most advanced, the oldest. Because it was the cheapest thing a mind wired for danger could produce. But a spirit in a river is not a religion yet. It's a flinch with a story attached. For that flinch to become something 1,000 strangers could kneel to at once, it had to survive something rivers and storms never had to survive: scale. For most of human history, that scale never came. Groups stayed small. Everyone knew everyone. You didn't need a god watching you because your aunt was watching you, and your aunt talked. Then, around 11,600 years ago, in what is now southeastern Turkey, something was built that shouldn't have been possible yet. No pottery existed. No writing existed. Agriculture hadn't been invented. And yet hunter-gatherers, People still living off wild game with no metal tools dragged limestone pillars weighing up to 60 tons across open ground and raised them into circles. Archaeologist Klaus Schmidt spent decades excavating the site, called Göbekli Tepe. His conclusion reversed a century of assumptions about how civilization began. Everyone had assumed farming came first and temples came after, once people had the surplus food and free time to build monuments. Schmidt's evidence said the opposite. The temple came first, the city came after. As he put it himself, humans may have built the house of God before they ever built a house for themselves. Something was pulling scattered hunter-gatherer bands away from their small, trusted circles and toward a shared ritual site built to hold hundreds of strangers at once. And once strangers are gathering, the old system breaks. Your aunt can't watch 100 people she's never met. Something else has to. This is the part psychologist Ara Norenzayan spent years studying. He analyzed a database of more than 400 human cultures and found something consistent. Small hunter-gatherer societies almost never believe in a god that cares what you do. Their spirits are real, but they're indifferent. They don't punish a lie, they don't reward a kindness. Only about a quarter of cultures in that database have a god that's actively watching human behavior and judging it. But as societies grow larger, as strangers start needing to trust strangers, that number changes. The odds of a culture believing in a watching, judging, moralizing God rise sharply alongside the size and complexity of the society itself. The spirit in the river never needed to care if you lied to your brother. But a God presiding over 100 strangers who will never see each other again, who have no aunt in common, who have no reputation to lose, that God needs to be watching. That God needs to punish. That's not a coincidence of theology. Norenzayan's research suggests it's a mechanism. The watching God was the tool that let cooperation scale past the size of a family. The flinch became a spirit. The spirit became a God that watched. The God that watched became the reason 100 strangers could trust each other enough to build a life together. None of it started as an idea. All of it started as a flinch that never learned when to stop firing. 300,000 years of that same reflex, layered generation on generation, slowly hardened into religion. And today, it's Sunday. Or it's Friday and you're on your way to a mosque. Or it's Saturday and you're lighting a candle you were taught to light before you were old enough to ask why. You bow your head, you fold your hands, you say words to something you can't see. That flinch you feel right before you pray, that's not new. That's not really about God at all, not first. It's the same reflex that pulled a god out of a river 300,000 years ago, in a man who shouldn't have survived, and a tribe that couldn't accept that he simply had. You didn't inherit a belief, you inherited a reflex. You just gave it a name.